In this video, we're gonna learn about FlexBox. FlexBox is one of the coolest things you're gonna learn in this course. It's an advanced CSS property. So you're gonna love it. Let's get started. So it's actually gonna take 2 videos to explain this because I don't want to take videos that are I don't want to make videos that are way too long. So we'll divide it into 2. So we'll have video 1 and video 2. So here all I have is boom. So here is the file that we've been working with. It's a single file called website.html, and I'm using Visual Studio Code and OpenLive server. So let me run this. That's all I have. And here basically I have this container, div called container, that is basically this kind of orange box, coral color, and then I have these little 3 boxes here to kind of display. So FlexBox are used, it's kind of like the infrastructure, it's kind of like the template of like how you want to move around items in your web page. So everything we do today, it's going to be kind of like, it will be about this structure, so you wouldn't actually see like new content to be drawn, for example. So far we've learned about 4 basic positioning systems. We learned about divs and h1s and paragraphs. We call them block elements because they start from a new line and they take off a whole width. We learned about inline elements like link and image, which are inline. They don't start off a new line and they don't take the whole width. And we learned about tables. So how do you create rows and tables? We learned about positions. So for example, how do you create an absolute position, relative position, fixed, sticky. Now this is another positioning system called FlexBox. So FlexBox are divided into two parts. One part is called a container. So it's kind of like a parent, and you have a children called items. So in this video, we're gonna discuss about parents, all the CSS properties that you can set for the parents to arrange the children. And then in the next video, we're gonna learn about individual items and how they can self-arrange. So let's get started. So here, that's all I have. So to make any div or anything, to position anything in a FlexBox, so you need a container FlexBox. So to display a container FlexBox, we basically go to this ID here. So we go inside the parent or the div that we want, the parent that we want to be the container, and then you say display flex. If I save this, now it displayed flex. Don't worry about this stretching that you've seen, but right now we're using FlexBox. So this container became a flex container, and this items became flexible items. So now there are multiple properties that you can set. So for example, you can set the direction. So you could be like, if I say column, the items go on top of each other. So I have a columns here, so I could list like column after column after column. I could do row. So now it's gonna list it by row. I actually want to give a height here, just to kind of demonstrate a point. Let's give this to, okay, anyway. So we have a height right now, right there. So now if now that's row. If I say column again, now we see the columns are this way. You can say row reverse, so it reverses the number. So now we have the 3 first, 3 to 1, but also that the place reversed. We can also have column, then reverse. Now it's here, so the column came here and then 3 to 1, right? So the direction, I'm gonna use row. And there is a way to organize. There is a way to organize the. Actually, let's make this 3. Okay, there we go. I'm messing with my head. So now, so the first one is the direction. You can set row or a column, and it best works with one line or like one thing, one row. Okay, so now, so you need to know about 2 things. One is called main axis. So it's kind of like a main line, and then you have cross axis. And when you're using the row, then the main axis would be this way, and then the cross axis would be across it. When you're using the column, then the direction of the column is the main axis, and the other one is the cross axis. And let me just comment this out. So then you can align the items in the main axis and in the cross axis. So for example, in the main axis right now we're using row, so it means the main axis is horizontal and the cross axis is vertical. If we're using column, then they would switch because the direction of the column will become the main axis and the other one would be the cross axis. So why do you use in row? The main axis, you use justify content to basically, to move items around the main axis. So flex start means put the items in the start, so they're here. If I say flex end, put the items in the end, so they're in the end. If I say center, now I can center. So you see how I am moving it around across the main axis. There is another one, so we could do flex start, center, flex end. Now if I wanna manipulate the space around them, I would say space, and then I have three options. So if I say space around, means every box has a space around it. See, if I say space between, now the space is just between, so I am putting them as further apart as possible. This space is between them. And the last one, if space evenly, it will put evenly, so if it has enough space from here to here to here to here. So in the main axis, I could put here I could say flex start, center, end, and I can manipulate the space in three different ways. Now I want to go with flex start. Actually, okay, there we go. And now the cross axis is the x-axis, so that means it moved from here to this to this. So in the cross axis, you use align items. So let's say center, so I can center, the same as flex start before. So now I come at the start, so I say flex end, you'd go to the end, and there is here is one more property, stretch. And now if I remove the height, now the stretch. So the default align items, when you don't set, it's a stretch. That's why it was like this when we first created made it FlexBox. So now if I say flex start, now there we go. If I say center, there we go. And then if I say let's see, flex end, there we go. So let me just center them. There you go. Nice. Great. So now one more property I want to discuss that is that is not related to the main or cross axis, related more to these three, is the wrap property. So flex wrap, and as you may have guessed it, it's what happens to the line. So actually I want to say flex start because let's see here. Great. Now it's just as it used to be. Okay, so flex wrap is what happens to the line when it gets too big for the container. So let's say I have more here. If I save this, and then let's just say now you can give up. So we have no wrap. If you say no wrap, it doesn't wrap. It just squeezes as much as it can, and for the rest it just overflows. So that's what you would have now. So to fix that, to make it drop to the next line, then you just say flex wrap. There you go. There is a way to say both at the same time. So for example, let me comment that. If you just say flex flow, which I kind of like flow because it's kind of the flow. So you see, I want a row and I want a drop. So now it works that way. So it's a way to kind of write both of them at the same time. I'm gonna go back and I'm actually gonna comment this out. Great. So that looks great. Now remember how we have in here, like in the main axis, we could say something like with a space. So we could say space between, right? Nice, that looks great. We could say space evenly. Remember how we can do that? Now what about the cross axis? So let's just say flex start. What about the cross axis? What about here in the line items? Space, we can't do that. We only have three options. We can say flex start. We can't manipulate the space in any way or form, can we? There is one more property to do that. So, and it only works with multiple lines. So when you have a multiple line, that is when you're gonna need spaces anyway. If you just add one line, then you don't need the spaces. That it's called align content when you have multiple line. And now you can do flexi start. Actually, I'm gonna increment that. Now flex end would go to the end, but you see, like they're closer together. The space between them is very close. Where if we had the same here, let me increment this. If we had end, see there is still space between them, although it's the end. So I'm just gonna comment on that. So in here we could do end, and then you could do, of course, start, and then you could do center, and you could do the space. So you can do space around, could do space between, but you can't. It doesn't have space evenly. So the nice thing about this is we can, when two files, you can use this to move around the space, and flex item is to when it's only one item. So for the cross, you have two options to manipulate the space between the two. Space around is the default. So if I remove this, the default of items is just a space around it. That's why if you need more space manipulation, you should use align content. Yeah, that's it. That's pretty much all you need to know. Let's see here. So one thing, there is this meme in programming community, especially in CSS, of centering a div. Okay, see, CSS centering memes. Okay, here's the memes. And the one does not simply center a div. This is hilarious. Okay, here. So we have people who have associates, bachelor's, master's, PhD, people who know how to center a div. And back-end developers, and then center a div. Front-end developers. But you get the joke, right? I don't always have to center content in a div, but when I do, I always forget how. So there is this whole joke of just how hard and difficult it is to center a div. So let's see if actually learning FlexBox is helpful in this context. So let me just remove everything here. Let me just have one div. Then I want to remove so you should kind of write down this, but I'm going to remove it now. Okay, so we have a div, which is kind of the container, and we have a single div. The question is, can we center this div exactly the center, like perfectly? Now, as we have seen though about the memes, it's insanely hard to do. But thanks to FlexBox, look how I do this, okay? And then you will also have these powers. Okay, so first of all, just say flex. We made it flex. We made the container FlexBox container, and we made the item flexible. That's why the default is stretch for align items. Don't worry about that yet. Now, so the first one is just to make it FlexBox container. Now I want to center in the main axis. So that was justify content center. So now I center it in the main axis. I want to center in the cross axis instead of stretching it. Remember, we just covered that is align items. If I say center, boom, just did that in 3 lines. So that is the power of FlexBox. You just learn how to center a div perfectly in 3 lines, while people create all these memes of just how hard it is to center a div. Yeah, so and in the next video, we're going to be learning about individual items. So this is all, this is basically, where is it? Let's go back here. Come on. Okay, this is all you need to know about basically the container properties, and then we'll get into the individual item properties in the next video. So see you in the next video. Bye.